In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, Paul gives a prophecy of what would happen to the church before the coming of Christ. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple, the Greek word nous, meaning the dwelling place of God, showing himself that he is God. When Paul uses the word temple in the New Testament, he refers to the Christian church. A power would arise, exalting a man above God in the Christian church. How did this system of apostasy come into the church? At the time of the apostles, a man by the name of Simon Magus was brought to view as they entered into Samaria. There this man was a great magician, and he had an entire town under his spell. Simon Magus was never converted to Christianity. He was a master of the occult arts, an initiate into the Hermetic mysteries. He made his way to Rome, and there he was believed to be a god. But he taught the people that he was Jesus Christ. A tremendous temple was built for him there. He established his center of worship in a place called the Vatis Khan, the divining serpent. Later, Simon Magus died, and he was buried there in the Vatican Hill in Rome. Others that spun off from this apostate Christian movement established their own cults. This great movement was called the Gnostic Society, and we find that some of the leading families in the occult world called themselves Christians, but had seals that reflected the pagan gods of astrology. In 1945, in Upper Egypt, in a little town called Nag Hammadi, a number of books were discovered in a cave. These books were sacred writings and appeared to have on them the names of many of the apostles. But who really wrote these books? It became evident in studying them that many occult teachings, spiritualistic teachings, that the apostles had never taught had been written into Christian gospels and passed off as if they were really inspired by God. This Gnostic movement, this counterfeit movement of Christianity, resulted in a deterioration and a destruction of many of the fundamental beliefs of apostolic Christianity. One thing that it did is it led men to allegorize and mythologize the scriptures to fit their own intellectual and philosophical views. These men believed that only the pneumatic part of man was redeemable, or that only the spirit of man was redeemable, a purely pagan principle up to that point. They de-emphasized the concepts of eschatology, or the prophecies leading to the coming of Christ, in favor of the existential movement, the experience. It was these men who brought into the church the pagan concepts of oracular voices or ecstatic utterances, tongues. They minimized the concept of disobedience, claiming that men could never obey, and that the law of the Old Testament was an evil law and had to be destroyed. Thus they introduced antinomianism into the Christian world. They didn't believe that the miracles of God were anything special. They taught that any man could do miracles. They de-emphasized the concepts of evil angels, fallen angels. Theology became a system of philosophy, and important words of the Bible were just spiritualized away. The cardinal doctrine of the movement was the non-flesh of Jesus Christ. These people claimed that Jesus was only pure light because only pure light was God, and anything physical was in itself evil. Therefore, man being evil could never obey the law, and his work was just to come to know the light, and he would be redeemed and saved. The Gnostic error that Jesus had a different kind of body than we are was a doctrine that has changed the face of the entire Christian world. John called it the teaching or the spirit of the Antichrist. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 2 and 3 we read, "Hereby know ye the Spirit of God, every spirit that confesseth that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God.
And every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is in the world. How did this strange teaching come into our Christian church? Well, the answer is simple. Many of the early church fathers felt that the highest form of worship was to unite the tenets of paganism and Christianity together. Such was the work of men like Jerome and Augustine. It was Augustine who had been a Manichaean Gnostic for 10 years of his life, and he believed that human flesh could not obey the law of God. Thus he merged his Gnostic concepts with the teachings of Christianity by developing the teaching of original sin. In this view, the idea was that Adam passed on the guilt and taint of sin to his offspring, and that because of that, every child born is born a sinner and cannot obey God's law, even with divine help. This resulted in concepts such as the Immaculate Conception of Mary, and in the Protestant religion, the idea that Jesus must have, through a miracle of birth, escaped the original taint of sin so that he could obey. But what flesh did Jesus actually take? We learned that in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14. For as much then as the children are partakers of the flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same. Jesus took the same flesh that you and I have, and through faith in divinity, he was able to perfectly obey the law of God. He was our example, and the character that he formed is a character that he'll impart to you and to me by faith. We have to obey God's law to be ready for his coming. In the book of Revelation, we read that at the end of time, there will be one small group ready for his coming. Revelation chapter 14, verse 12. Here are the patience of the saints. Here are they that obey the commandments of God and the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ. We cannot expect to meet salvation with erroneous views of the Antichrist. We've got to study the Bible for ourselves. Look to Jesus as the author and the finisher of our faith. Obey his commandments through faith in him and be ready for his coming. In 312, the Roman general Constantine claimed to be converted to this new paganized form of Christianity. He claimed that while en route to battle, he had seen a cross in the heavens. In following this cross, he won the battle and claimed the victory for Jesus Christ. When Constantine came to power, although he was a worshiper of the god Apollo, he claimed that he was a Christian. Coins that were made after that showed sun symbols all around him.